We like really need a girls' night out.
Yeah.
And money has an energy all of its own. Money already has an energy, yet we give it this energy and it doesn't need it. It's got the most powerful energy ever. And when you can learn to harness the energy of money, there's a flow. But what would it be? I'm not going to put an energy or an emotion or a feeling or a thought around it. That in itself is going to create huge change for you. When I meet wealthy people, they do not think in a scarcity mindset. They don't give money an energy. They have no emotion. It's a transaction. They do the due diligence on it. If it works, we do it. If it doesn't, we don't. There's no emotional attachment. Does that make sense? Yep. So decluttering is the first thing. So when you're in overwhelm and you've got no clue, even if you just don't know what to do next, because you've got literally no money, $5 in the bank, just declutter. Declutter kitchen drawers, go through your offices. Stop the bleed. So when I say stop the bleed, what I love people to do is go through their accounts and go, what don't I need? It's the magazines that you subscribe for that you don't need. You'll find that there's a ton of stuff coming out that you don't need to have come out. So just stop all of that bleeding, because it's like a sinking ship. Even the smallest crack will sink the best ship. So we just need to stop all of that. Get a snapshot of where you are. So this is all the boring crap. I'll get into the better stuff later. I don't have much time with you either, which is hard. Take a snapshot. So effectively, if I say to you, we need to go to Perth, and you go, yeah, that's great, I'll come to Perth with you. But I don't know, are we leaving from Brisbane or are we leaving from Sydney? Because I can't get you to Perth if I don't know where we're starting from. So we need to work out where you're at. Take a snapshot of your assets and your liabilities. Are we leaving from Brisbane or are we leaving from Sydney? You know, what are we dealing with here? Is it overwhelming debt, or do you have really good asset structure? Is it your budgeting? Is it the fact that you're overcommitted? Is it the fact that you don't have enough income coming in? Like, where are we starting from? So do a snapshot. And then the champagne lifestyle is something that's close to my heart, because I drive a Mercedes. I like nice things, and yet I've had to start with nothing. So at some point, you know, you've got to do the do and get to a point where you can start to do that. But I don't believe in budgeting and driving a crap car and having a ton of money in the bank and not enjoying life as you go. So this is what tonight's about. Biggest thing, scarcity mindset. If you meet wealthy people, they don't talk in limiting fashion. So when we were really wealthy, it didn't enter my head that I couldn't buy a 56-foot sailboat. Didn't even enter my head. It was like, yeah, sure, I'll put the deposit down. Great idea. Didn't ask about marina fees or, do you know? Because it doesn't enter your head. It's just, okay, so we'll just make it happen. How do we make it happen? What I've found is when I've gone from a position of having a lot of money to not having money, the lack of confidence comes in. The scarcity mindset comes in. The insecure feelings come in. You start second guessing yourself. Maybe I don't really know. Maybe I'm not really good. Maybe I'm not confident anymore. And as women, we're absolutely the best at that. You know, we beat ourselves up over mother's guilt. There's not one thing in the day that you won't feel bad about, feel guilty about, worry about, stress about, spread yourself thin. So the best thing that I can do is come from a position of empowering you guys to know that if you've got an issue with money, it's easily solved. I've just got to show you how. Okay, so we're going to get organised. We're going to do it because it's great feng shui. Who knows about feng shui? That's good, because I didn't. I got a feng shui expert into my house at Budrum, and I purpose-built designed this 3-story mansion that when you came in on the level, that it was like 180-degree views of the ocean. And it was down a marble staircase onto the next floor, which looked out over glass. And the woman came up from Sydney and she went, oh, well, we better put something there. And I said, no, I don't think you understand. The whole idea is that there's nothing there. It's all out just to the ocean. And big bifolds, everything open up to glass. And she said, well, you're just inviting money to come in your front door and woof, out. And literally 8 months later, we had nothing. So I don't know whether that's coincidence. But now if someone comes in and goes, that's not good feng shui, I'm like, okay, so what do we do to block that? So just declutter. Stop the bleed. We've gone through that. Something that is really easy, which I didn't think I'd bring over. Yeah. Who hates budgeting? Yeah, everyone. I hate budgeting too. And something that I do really quickly in 10 seconds with clients, so the brokers in the room, this will be really good for you guys. When you're with a client, you've got 3 highlighters, get their statements. All of the stuff that they can't control, mortgage repayments, that sort of thing, you might highlight in one colour, yellow. Everything that you can't control, school fees, all that sort of stuff. Then go through and do one other colour, highlight that with all the stuff that you could possibly change if you could. So that's like your AGL, like your, electricity, stuff that if you rang around you could get cheaper. And then let's just say you do BWS, Kmart, corner store. Only because BWS and, what is it? Yeah, it's always on my statements. So if you go through and you find, if I see that your whole thing is yellow, I know that you are robbing Peter to pay Paul to live beneath your means, like to live within your means. And Australia is the second highest country to live in as far as expenditure goes. So it's cost a fortune to live here. So if you're doing it tough, it's really not your fault. But if we go through and the whole thing's pink, how excited do you think I am? Because we've got a ton of room to move and it's really exciting. And that should be the extent of your budget if you hate budgeting. Okay, so champagne lifestyle. Something that if you go through your house and if you don't love it, sell it. There's a massive market around. This is stuff that you already know, but this is a way we can free up cash flow. So if you've got furniture you're not using or it's getting in the way, clothes, and I'm going to go through and show you some stuff about how my friends go to the races looking like they spent $3,000 on an outfit and they haven't. So I'm going to show you through that sort of stuff. But it's the selling of it. Get rid of it. Use the cash, Gumtree, all of that sort of stuff to free up cash flow for yourself. People buy the weirdest things. You have a garage sale, you make a couple of $1,000s on all of the old clothes, the dresses that don't fit sitting in your wardrobe, and then we use that money, and I'm going to show you later what we use it for. But this is a way to really empower yourself. Not only are you decluttering your life and allowing more energy, more experiences, more opportunities in, but you're getting very clear on what it is that you want. You're freeing up cash flow as a result. And so many people I see tend to shop or buy as a numbing the pain or as the next thing that might make them happy, or do you know what I mean? And then they hang on to things, and so it's a real cathartic thing to clean and get rid of it. Side hustle. I had a client of mine, she's just had a baby, and she was saying to me, I don't want to go and do hours at the IGA. I've got a newborn, childcare is expensive, but we need more money in. And so what she's doing is she's saying to businesses like myself, $25 an hour, I'll do your social media. So she's got 10 of us now, earns $250 a week, and all she just does is potter and do little posts and stuff and do our social media. And she does it while the bubba's sleeping. That's a brilliant side hustle. And because she's my client, I've got her investing money now, so we've got a portion put aside, and I'll show you how we do that. Repurpose and upcycle. I'm going to show you a little bit about that later on as well. So we often think we need to go to IKEA or Freedom and spend a fortune when we've got pieces that we can upcycle or recycle to change. And some of us, like me, I rearrange my house all the time because it drives me insane. But spending and buying new things and trying to that's how Kmart is just absolutely astronomically off the charts at the moment as far as their share price and their turnover, because who's part of the Kmart Mums Australia or the Kmart Decorating Mums group? No one. That's fantastic. So they've got like something like 75,000 members, and they're constantly changing and updating, and those $9 cushions add up. So brand ambassador, this is a big one. If you've got more than 3,000 followers on Instagram or Facebook, you can go on something called Tribe and earn $300 every time you post something. So if I go along and go, oh, I've got this pink highlighter, I love my pink highlighter. Look, here's me with my pink highlighter. And then they'll go, thank you for posting that. We'll send you $300. And it's called Tribe. It's an app that you download, and it doesn't matter where you are or what you do. So whether you're just, someone that loves to go to the beach, there might be beachy things. Somebody might be in the music industry. Someone might be in finance. There's always products that suit. And that's a really good way you can generate income. And of course, when your followers get up in the tens of thousands, then you start getting things for free. And then you'd be like Kanye and you've got 40 3 million followers or whatever he's got, he doesn't pay for a thing. Cars and all that sort of stuff. So social media influencer. So it's the same as even if you just have a few hundred followers, friends and family, people start to invite you to things that they think that you might love. So friends of mine are into cars, and so they go along to the car shows and they post about how amazing the cars are. Now they get free tickets to the car show. I was at a Jag weekend 2 weeks ago, and I got to race Jaguars around the racetrack because I love cars, and I'm probably in the market for a new car, and Jag was like, she's going to put this all over social media, and I did. And it gets them more traction, more following. That's the second Jag race day I've done, and Audi's the same. So, but it doesn't have to be luxury brands. It can be something as small as your girlfriend's new venture or a book that she's posted. You know, here's the book that I've just written. You can have a copy if you put it on your social media. And it's a great way of supporting local business too. If you've got friends who are into photography or something like that, to be able to share their services to help them generate more income. And enter all the competitions. There was a massive survey done last year about, you know, that we run competitions like this and people just think we're not going to win it. And That's Life magazine. I've never read it, but apparently people they've always got heaps of competitions, win 200, win 500, and people make a living out of that. They make 30 or 40,000 a year, and they don't enter the caravan competitions because they think, oh, we'll never win a caravan, but someone's got to win it. I'd like to be the person who won the 50 million last night. Someone from Canberra. Okay, so dump the scarcity mindset. Who's heard of the law of attraction down the rabbit hole? Who's seen it work? Yeah. So anecdotally, if you're speaking to someone who has a lot of money, they don't ever think that it's not possible. So I've got vision boards and writing, and this stuff works. When I was in the absolute depths of despair, 2 little bubbers, because when my daughter was 12 weeks old, I had 60 minutes on my doorstep. Clients calling, everything was going pear-shaped. And then I fell pregnant with my son at the same time. So then it was like the universe said, well, you know, now you can't drink yourself into an oblivion because you're pregnant with the second, and you have to stand up and take stock of what's happening here. And, you know, there was all these federal police and the ASIC investigations, and it was pretty heavy duty at the time. And looking back now, I'm grateful for all of that because I've had to go through an experience that I didn't think I could get any lower than the low, you know. Moving houses constantly with 2 little bubbers, having to deal with all the fallout. And then at some point I had to go, well, I can't just wallow in this for forever. I have to start again. So how am I going to do that? And this is part of going through this, is believing in yourself and taking action. So the biggest thing is, I've got friends of mine who just say, oh no, I'm just going to sit here and wait for the law of attraction to give it to me. But it doesn't work that way. It's the power of positive doing. And when you see people who are successful, like the Tony Robbins of the world, they'll say, even if you don't feel like it, get up and have a procedure every day. This is what you do. You're grateful for this and all that sort of stuff. I promise you this stuff does work. At some point I think it didn't. But when I got to a point where I couldn't see, I had no hope for my future, I had a friend of mine come around and she said, what are we going to do with you? You know, you've gone from these highs to these massive lows. And so we sat there and she made me cut out things out of magazines and put together a vision board. And I'm like, oh, a vision board, really? That's going to get me out of this. And she's like, yep, I want you to look at it every day. She got black felt pen and wrote what else is possible on my mirror in my bathroom. So when I walk in the morning, what else is possible? I love and approve of myself exactly as I am. Like, it literally gave me a list of all these affirmations I'd have to see when I turned up. That started to slowly turn things around. It's the action that we're talking about. So Faye wanted me to talk about also, I had this lifestyle where I was travelling a lot. I had to sell all my Louis Vuitton bags to pay the rates on my property before we lost it. It's amazing that you spend like $6,500 on a handbag and then someone won't give you $1,000 for it. So, but I understand what it's like. It's still nice to have these things. And this is not about luxury brands necessarily. This is about having a life while you're building wealth. Because we all know those people who go, oh no, I can't go out to lunch because I'm saving, or I've got no money, or something like that. So we need to have a balance. With the clothing and accessories, when you go to a lot of events, $300 for a dress is exorbitant, especially if you just wear it once. Being in a position to hire stuff, especially if you're a professional woman, it means that you go to these events, you're in something new, you look amazing, you take all your photos, you whack it all on social media, you send it back. And the thing is that what we want to do is go, what would we do with the difference of that saving? So I'm all for creating that saving, because I do have friends that spend $600 or $700 on a dress and then they never wear it again. And I'm like, oh, because that could have gone into a portfolio. That could be paying down in property. So these are some really good places that you can hire designer dresses from. I can put it on my Facebook account later anyway. And they're proven, they work really well. They've got, you know, high-end designer brands that you'd normally spend $2,500 on a dress that you can rent it for $300 for the night. And they've also got dresses that are chic that you might spend $300 on in a shop and you can rent it for $80 for the night. And this is how we start to go, okay, so then what else is possible? So these girls here, there was a post that went up on that particular website on Facebook, the Millinery and Racewear. I think there's about 40,000 people that follow that now. And they say, look, I'm a size 12. I need a winning outfit for fashions on the field. Now, normally you'd go out and spend $600 or $700 on a dress, $300 on a fascinator, a couple of $100 getting your hair. Like, it's ridiculous. And then for one event, you've spent $1,200. Whereas you can go on here and get an outfit that somebody's put together that's immaculate, that's already won fashions in the field for $200 to $300, and it's probably from Perth or somewhere. No one's ever seen it on anybody before. And then you can buy the same thing for maybe $200 to $300. And then the best thing is you get it dry cleaned and you sell it again the following week. So your turnover, you're not spending a fortune. Your credit cards are kept low. You're still looking amazing. On your Instagram account, if that's important for you, you're like, yeah, I'm here in Valentino, whatever it is. You know, people go, oh my God, how's she doing that? How can she afford that? That's crazy. So the high-end buy, swap and sells. We even have, there's second-hand websites for Louis Vuitton, Prada. They're everywhere, and they come with their own authenticity certificate. So you're not buying copies necessarily, although knock yourself out if you want to, that's fine too. But it's just a way that you can still look classy, you can still look professional, you can still look like you're not dressing at Kmart, and keep that level of authenticity about yourself without actually having to run up a $10,000 credit card. These are really good clothing outlets that a lot of my clients tend to use. I don't tend to buy online because usually it's after too many wines and then I regret it the next day. So I've got a bit of a ban on online shopping for myself. But the furniture and motor vehicles, one of my clients, she's in Mullaney. She's a lovely woman that's right into decorating. She's just put a new home on her property, and she buys end of financial year sales. She only gets high-end stuff, but she will not buy furniture unless it's 70% off. And she gets the most incredible stuff. And then she'll go to the Witter Hall and all the different recycle places and get that eclectic pieces. You know, all the weird little trinket things that make rooms absolutely incredible. And so she's right, and she's actually quite a wealthy woman, can afford to go to a very expensive furniture shop, but she loves this. She gets a lot of pride out of that, and I love it because her investments keep building and, you know, she's making money and looking after herself. So in Gumtree, when you're looking at cars, necessarily buying cars, Gumtree has a place where there's fleet sales. So they're cars that were once company cars, and quite often, so another client of mine just got a brand new Ford 150, you know those 250 tough trucks, this is a 150. She should have paid 90 grand for it, but the guy was only owed 65,000 for the end of year tax because of the way the GST worked, so he just flogged it for 65,000. She could have turned around and sold that same car for 90,000 last week. So there's buys like that that are around. We just have to be aware that sometimes people are just keen to get rid of stuff. I'm yet to find that on a new car like a Mercedes or something, but it was good on the trucks. So the saving strategies. There's a lot of stores that sell on consignment. So that's basically you might have a nice dress or you might have clothes in your wardrobe that you're not using, and it's hard to sell those sorts of things on Gumtree. There's plenty of boutiques around that will sell them on consignment, so they'll just take a percentage. They might take 10% to sell it for you. And then it's out of your hair and you've got the cash in your pocket. Shop your friend's wardrobe for events. So that's something that happens a lot in Brisbane. They'll say, we're going to have this shopping event. You bring 5 pieces, you bring 5 pieces, you bring 5 pieces. We'll all put it together and you get tokens and then you get to take what you want from, and it hasn't cost you a cent. But you might come away with a nice handbag or something like that. So they're the ways that you can start to have luxury items. You can be shopping, you can get new pieces added to your wardrobe without it costing you any money. So wardrobe swap events, that's another big one as well. Rent out a room. You guys know about all of this sort of stuff that's happening in so much as people are renting out a garage for $80 a week. That's a significant amount of money if you're not using a garage. You know, people need places for caravans if you've got a backyard with a spot that you can put a caravan. The reason why I'm saying all of this is $80 a week might not seem a lot, but from a wealth creation point of view, it's gold. Because then we start putting that into an investment portfolio, we're dollar cost averaging into the market, we're margining up on that, we're creating you wealth that 5 to 10 years from you'll be blown away. If we put an investment debt against it, we're minimising your tax, like we're starting to create strategies that are empowering you. It's not just about going, oh, I'm trying to pay off my car. You know, I'm trying to pay off my house, or I'm saving for an investment property. We're starting to do tangible strategies that will change the way you are 5 to 10 years from now. And it's just something as simple as renting out your garden shed. Airtasker and Fiverr, they're for people who want to hustle. You know, if you're really good, like my girlfriend at social media, or she's a client at social media, and you've got 5 or 10 hours on your hand, what could you do that might earn you another 100 or 200 a week? And then what would you do with that money? What's the best bang for buck for that money? There's websites for luxury escapes. My favourite is on the next page. So the MLM opportunities, I'm not a massive fan of MLM, but you know what? I'm with Amway. I don't sell it. I don't even use it. But for $29 a year membership, I save $200 on my AGL bill. That's like a no-brainer, amongst other things. And there's a wine club that's just coming to Australia, and you get free wine. I'm like, that's me all over. Happy days. Okay, so, and then there's these things, you know, a lot of my friends get last-minute deals on lastminute.com. So at the moment, there's one today, you can fly from Brisbane to Port Douglas for nearly $300 a person and stay for 3 nights. So this is the sort of thing where you don't tell anyone, and next thing you're, oh, I'm in Port Douglas in my bikini, looking amazing, and everyone's like, how do you do that? It's that sort of lifestyle. It's being genius to coming up with ways to go, how else can I have this fabulous life? How else can I make this possible? And I'm always going to say to you, by having this fabulous life and trying to free up cash flow, what is it that you want to be doing with your life? Because the hardest thing I see when I sit one-on-one with clients, especially couples, is, so what are we doing this for? Oh, we're going to retire. Okay, well, that's 40 years away or 20 years away. What are we doing in the middle? What sort of holidays do you like? What makes your heart sing? I don't really know. I'm going to put a veranda on or something. You know, like, no, the stuff that lights you up. What are we doing? Because it's so incredible when you get to a position where people are smashing out goals. You know, like buying a Harley Davidson that he's wanted forever. And she's excited about saving towards his goal because he's so excited about it. And then when you get it, it's incredible. So it's those sorts of things that make living more exciting for people. That's that furniture thing I was talking about, upcycling and recycling. I saw that on Facebook the other day. People do amazing things. Then they sell it. There's markets down in Brisbane where they upcycle furniture that they get free from dumpsters. They beeswax it and put chalk paint on it and sell it for $300. And that's on Gumtree everywhere too. There's some very genius people around. So who's heard of Afterpay and ZipPay? This is going to be the next biggest problem for Australia. Yeah, it's going to be a big problem. So because people can't make the payments in 4 payments with Afterpay. So ZipPay went, oh, that's genius. Well, we'll make it that you can pay whatever you want as long as they're regular instalments. And I saw today that Virgin Airline are now saying you can Afterpay your flights overseas. You know, so people are putting $3,000 worth of flights on Afterpay. Do they have to pay fortnightly payments for the next? That's not going to happen. And you can get pre-approval of up to $4,000 in 3 clicks. So as it is, as a financial advisor, I see people in their 20s now who have $80,000 in unencumbered debt. You know, they have to go bankrupt. There's nothing more we can do, and then that wipes out their 20s. It's a massive epidemic. There's a global financial debt epidemic at the moment. There's no foreseeable generation in our world that will pay off the debt in the US at the moment. And it's only going to keep increasing. So unless they wipe that debt, which is not going to happen, or we just go, well, that's the debt we've always had to have and that's what we live with. But it costs too much to run the world in the current environment, and yet the US is on 0 interest rates. Since 2008, their stock market's gone boom through the roof. Ours hasn't. And the reason that hasn't happened is because we didn't print money. So that's called quantitative easing. And so Australia still has that up their sleeve. So when we hit the next contagion event, which inevitably we will, and I think it's sooner rather than later, we're going to see a global recession, and we're going to see a lot of drama and a lot of difficulty in the rest of the world, and Australia's going to be reasonably protected. Not greatly protected, but a little bit better than normal, because we've still got money printing up our sleeve. Does that make sense? So in the current environment, a lot of my clients, I'm moving to more conservative investments, and I'm getting them to batten down the hatches a bit. So that's why these sorts of conversations are good to have, because sometimes we can be very naive because we don't know this is happening. You know, we're just going to work, we're paying our bills, we're not aware of how we sit in the rest of the world. And so these kind of nights are great because we joke and we talk about being able to afford this luxury lifestyle on a budget, but the reality too is that being in a position where you're not heavily indebted is a really good position for you guys at the moment. And heavily indebted, I mean investment debt's wonderful, but not necessarily all the private debt. You guys know this. If you've got a financial situation and you can't work through it, talk to someone like myself. How do I get out of this? What do I do? Because sometimes you're in a situation where with fresh eyes you can't see your situation for yourself, but somebody else can come in and go, okay, well, this is where we can move. So why are we doing this? So this is my passion. I love putting people in a position where they say, okay, well, you know, we want to be able to have holidays every 2 years. We want to own our own home. We want the kids in private school. We want to have a new car every 5 years. This is how we want it. So then we set cash flow parameters. We say, okay, well, we need another $40,000 for a new car in 5 years. How do we make that happen? You know, we're not constantly unlocking equity from your home, but you can't just be saving in 20-cent pieces because you'll get nowhere. You know, the cost of living in Australia is huge. By the time you pay your tax, you're barely even covering inflation on anything that you're saving in that respect, because we just don't have the interest rates there. So then we need to be in a position to say, well, where else can you earn your money? And right now you're hearing me say, I think the share market's going to take a hit in a roundabout sort of way, aren't I? So, and I am licensed with ASIC. I have my own financial planning firm. So everything I say tonight is generic in nature and not designed to be active, you know, all that sort of disclaimer stuff. But the economist in me says, be wary, because had I seen the signs that I saw in 2008 that I see now, I would have mitigated my risk further. And back then, I'd set my portfolios to withstand a market fall of 40%, which meant that, you know, what I owed versus what I own, the market would have to fall 40%. But the market fell 50%, and I was in hospital having my daughter. And I had $400,000 in cash sitting ready for a margin call that never came. So things happen, stuff happens. You can try and protect yourself as best you can, but redundancy happens, divorce happens, job losses happen, businesses fail, all sorts of things happen. And what I've learned and what I pride myself on now is that it's how you recover from that adversity. You know, and if you've ever been up against a massive illness, you know, I've got a girlfriend at the moment fighting breast cancer, had a double mastectomy, I've got no problems. You know, she's amazing. And when you're faced with those sorts of things, then you start thinking money's just secondary. It really means nothing. But if you're going to be here and you're going to be working and you're going to be buying houses, and then it's a really good idea to think about it really well and have a bit of a plan. And I love what else is possible. Because some of the biggest, people only go and see a financial advisor if they come into a windfall. So I've got some clients who won the Division 1 lottery in Mullaney last month, and they come into a windfall and then they're like, what do we do with it? Or the proverbials hit the fan and they're like, what do we do? So right now, being women too, and there's no men here, which is helpful, I can say that you guys are really undervalued and you're also disadvantaged because you have time out of work with no superannuation in the workforce. You know, you're raising children, you're behind the 8 ball again. Many of us will get divorced and have to start again, and we're still raising babies. So it's really, really hard to put yourselves in a powerful financial position. So and part of all of this is starting to say, okay, well, what else can I be doing? How else can I be moving forward? And if you've got more than one superannuation policy at the moment, you're disadvantaging yourself because you're probably paying 3 or 4 lots of insurances, which is eating up your supers. And just even knowing where it's invested will save you or make you hundreds of thousands by the time you go to retire by just having a look at it now. So I don't like that fake it till you make it stuff. I like the be it until you are it. You know, so I like the idea that every day you get up and you're just actioning those things that you need to do to be that person that you want to be. And whether that's saving, whether that's investing, whether that's trying to be better at your job, be a better parent, all that sort of stuff, just be it until you are it. I don't like the airy-fairy stuff necessarily because I'm boring corporate finance. And I work with men all the time. And that whole Me Too thing, massive. In my early careers as a financial advisor where I was #1 in the country, I had to be smarter, stronger, faster, work harder, put more runs on the board, and especially because I'm blonde.
No.
Yeah, I'd be the only girl at these big corporate events, and it was awful. And they'd try and find ways to belittle you, undermine you, all that sort of stuff. It's good now because I'm old enough to reprimand them. And spending savvy. So something that's really interesting is doing contra deals with people. So I don't have my lashes on at the moment, but normally I get the fake lashes on. I do a contra with the girl. I help her with her stuff. She does my lashes. I do business coaching for a health and for hairdressers, and then they do my colour and cut and anything I want in that respect as contras. So if you think you can't afford the massages and you can't afford the things that make you feel beautiful, find a way to do a contra. Or find a way that you can swap your expertise for someone else's expertise. And you will definitely find people who will relish that because they're in a position where they can't give you what they want what you've got and they can't afford you. There's also those training schools and stuff too where you can go and get massages for $20. So you don't have to worry about I can't afford, an $80 massage because they're definitely around. So how much time have I got, Fabe? 2 minutes? I always talk over because normally I talk for 2 or 3 hours on this stuff, so you guys got it good. These are my 3 favourite things, and I'll end on this slide. So the power of leverage. So something that I want to leave you with tonight, which is just thinking beyond the budgets, the bills, all of that sort of stuff. If you save $5,000 a year, you go, I'll go and invest $5,000, or I'll go and put it against my mortgage. And I'll be like, really? That's awesome. You had no coffee for a whole year so that you could put $5,000 on your mortgage. You're just going to hate me. That's not fun at all. What we start looking at is what else is the bang for buck? Where's the better use of that $5,000? So at the moment, I can borrow $100,000 at 5% and have $5,000 worth of interest, and now I've got $100,000 at my disposal for investment for that same $5,000. And that $5,000 is now tax deductible to me. So the real cost to me is only $3,500. And now I'm starting to go, oh my God, what else is possible? $100,000 in the stock market's pretty amazing if it's making 10 to 12%. And I lease the use of that money for $3,500 net cost to me. And then we start going, that's $100,000. We do that every year over the next 10 years, that's $1 million. Now you're $5,000 a year, you start going, I'll go without coffee and bad men and alcohol, well not quite, but you'll start coming up with ways to save money if you can see that there's a real value in it. Does that make sense? And when you see people who know about this stuff, they can start to get you excited about what it is that you're saving for. This is why you do it. And this is what excites me because you guys can do this for yourselves. It's just about educating yourself. A bit like the health and wellness. When you know the system of calories in, calories out, Your body will just do its thing. When you know the system of money in, money out, you'll just naturally start to get ahead. The power of compound interest. You guys are all young. You've got to work for years and years and years. You're not going to access retirement for a long time yet. So the power of compound interest and the term, that's gold for wealth creation. You know, I made a lot of money. Admittedly, I was earning a lot of money, but money makes money. So if you're in a position where you've got a surplus income, that's beautiful to make more money in itself. Start small, build gradually. And then who reads The Barefoot Investor? If you ever have, he's on the money. I've met Scott before. He's a good egg, patronising, but he's a bloke. It's very annoying. Treats his followers like they're dummies. But he's on the money. Index funds. The reason why you go and see a financial advisor, so an index fund is the top 200 on the ASX. The ASX is the Australian Stock Exchange. And financial planners are given a bad name because what they do is they go to you and they speak all this lingo and they make you feel like you're silly. Oh, you know, growth assets, and you're like, what's a growth asset? So they make it all complicated, and they charge you a huge fee. Then you come away going, I don't know what we're actually doing here. And you have to hand it all over to them, and then you pay them usually an exorbitant amount for the privilege. I've only ever invested in the top 200 on the ASX. That's how I've made all my money, because I don't pay an MER, a management expense ratio, and I don't pay advisor fees, because however my money is apportioned to the top 200 in the ASX is how it's... So basically, if Coles Myer makes up 10% of the ASX, 10% of my money goes to Coles Myer. There's no people sitting around a boardroom making decisions on, do we buy more of this, do we sell more of that, do you know? And that's the advisor fees and the MER fees and the platform fees that you pay. So if the stock market's made 10% in a financial year and the ASX has made 10%, you would expect that your planner should have made you 16 or 17%, because then they're going to take out their 4% fees and you're up 1 or 2%. That's generally how it's supposed to work. But what happens is that these people often get it wrong. They're often chasing returns that don't happen. Then they give you all the shareholder reasons why it hasn't happened. And so their fund's only got 10%, but you've had to pay them 4% fees. So now your fund's only made 6%. And then people get annoyed. And then they go and see, oh, my plan is crap. I'm going to go and see another financial advisor. And then they basically say financial advisors are like used car salesmen, you know, or real estate agents. And so you get bandied into that. Whereas if you can say to people, if you just invest in the top 200 on the ASX, which is why Scott Pope, Barefoot Investor, has made an absolute mozza, because he's saying advisors are crap, just put your money here and don't worry about it. Because you're not paying fees, you're invested in the top 200 companies in Australia, your money's fully franked, which means the tax has been paid on it for you. So if you had a rental property, let's just say you had a $500,000 rental property and $500,000 in shares, you would have to pay tax on the $30,000 worth of rent coming in on your rental property. Whereas if you had that same $500,000 worth of shares, that $30,000 would just come to you tax-free. So there's a lot of these financial planning things that are just tips and tricks that, you know, make your life easier just as long as you know about them, which is why it's important to have shares and property. And when he starts talking about Vanguard and the top 200 on the ASX, that's all he's talking about, and he's right in that respect. So that's a really good way of starting to go, okay, well, I'd love to get into investing. Jodie's talking about it. Then companies come up, one more minute, with this thing called Acorns. So there's an app called Acorns. It's now called Raz, R-I-A-Z, but it still comes up if you do Acorns. So if I go and get a coffee here, and my coffee's $4.70, I'll swipe my card, it's attached to the Acorns app, and 30 cents, round it up to $5, 30 cents goes into my share investment, into the top 200 on the ASX. So now, every time you go grocery shopping, every time you get a coffee, it's the little 50 cents here, the $2 there, the 40 cents here, and now you're investing in the top 200 on the Australian stock market. That's not going to make you a multi-millionaire, but it's a beautiful place to start. And a lot of my clients who are 14, 15, 16, like the kids of my clients, we do that with them. And so then they get on their app and they go, oh, wow, you know, we've got $400 now. And it's a way that they learn to save. It's a way that they learn to invest because they learn about fully franked dividends. It's not costing them anything. They're not physically having to transfer money, and it's free to do. There's no fees on it. So they're the little tips and tricks for tonight on all the things that you should be looking.
We really need a girls' night.